I'm Cindy Novak, Downsize Administrator with the Carolyn Stark Real Estate Team. Thank you so much for joining us for our Home Edition event. Today we've got a really great program for you. We've got Sue Coyle of Coyle Care Management, and her program is Have You Communicated Your Wishes? The conversations between elders and their family members related to sensitive topics like health and finances are sometimes difficult, and she's got some really good ideas to share on how to pave the way to make those conversations easier for everyone. Now, here's Sue.
I am happy to be here. My name is Sue Coyle. My business is Coyle Care Management and Consulting. By background, I'm an occupational therapy assistant, and I have my bachelor's degree in healthcare administration, and I'm also a certified aging life care manager. One of the only, I believe still the only certified care manager in the, nationally certified care manager in the Fox Valley area. So I started my business about 9 years ago now, and what I do in my care management practice is really to help older adults and their families. Very often I'm working with families to help determine, coordinate, and monitor their care needs. Ideally to keep them at home as long as possible and as independently as safely as possible. Or if that's not the best option, then help them to move to the best assisted living facility or best care facility. So today, the name of my presentation, I'll back up here, is Have You Communicated Your Wishes? So, you know, a lot of people, it goes hand in hand with having advance directives and the legal means of communication, but we're not going to focus solely on that. I'm really going to focus more on the personal parts of it. So what we'll discuss, when is it time to have that conversation? And I'm going to say not just with your parents, but with your children, with your loved ones. Because I think it's important for all of us to plan, not just the older adults. How to recognize and determine changes in loved ones, what to look for, when to approach it, how to start the conversations about your concerns for loved ones, and what to prepare and know. So we're going to start off with recognizing some signs. So if you're seeing, you know, that your parents, and I'm going to use that term parents, maybe are, you know, kind of doing some unusual things, and maybe there's some safety concerns about them in their homes, or driving is a big issue, or they're having a lot of health challenges, whether, you know, just recent diagnoses or just maybe not caring for themselves as well as they normally did, or emotional challenges. And right now, during this time of COVID, that probably is what we're seeing so much. People are just so lonely and so isolated and anxious, and so a lot of those emotional issues right now are just huge. Might see change in their self-cares. You know, maybe they're just not bathing or showering as routinely as they always have, or maybe they're wearing the same clothes for days. And then the home management, you know, their house maybe is not as clean or orderly as it always has been. The refrigerator can be a real telltale sign, you know, if there's old food, or if they don't know if there's old food, you know, some real significant issues. And if there's caregiver concerns, I have several of my clients who are couples, and one couple is caring for the other couple, and very often what I refer to as that dynamic duo, that one is providing the care, but something happens to that person, and then what happens to the person that was receiving more of the care? Or with the dynamic duos, what one can't do, the other one does. So all of a sudden that balance is upset, and you know, their daily well-being is upset and changed. So, you know, noticing some of those issues. Injuries or unexplained bruises, obviously falls, if they're having falls in their home, and I find many times many older adults won't admit it if they're having falls, unless there are visible bruises or injuries. Unsafe appliance use, are they forgetting to turn off the burners, or, just even leaving lights on all over the house that, they didn't normally do. Like I said, driving is one of the hardest things. The ability and agility to drive. Very often as we age, our range of motion declines. So the ability to turn our heads from side to side and the reflex time. So driving is a concern in and of itself. Household barriers or accessibility. Some of those folks who might live in an older home and the only bathroom and or the bedrooms are upstairs, that can present real challenges later in life. And obviously if they have impaired mobility, need to use a cane or a walker. And another significant concern is, do they recognize danger? Leaving their doors unlocked at night, or letting in strangers, or, phone scams right now are so prevalent and so scary. So, just those are some significant safety concerns. So, and then health concerns. Like I said before, is there a significant change in their health or a specific illness? Are they having a hard time with medications? Are there a lot of new medications and they're having a hard time remembering what's what and what they're supposed to take when? Sleep difficulties are so common, and that can really affect how we function during the day. I know when I don't get enough sleep, I talk stupid. Sometimes I just have a hard time pronouncing and finding the right words. So, sleep is very important for us. And I already mentioned impaired mobility. And then, of course, the memory and the cognitive changes. Sometimes as early indicators of dementia, the memory isn't always impaired, but the judgment may be. So, and that may be harder to spot. And then, like I said, especially right now during COVID, there's so many emotional changes that we're all dealing with. The decreased activity, the isolation, which leads to depression, leads to more confusion. How many of us working at home don't know what day of the week it is. If it weren't for this little grid right down here in my computer that tells me the date and the time that I look at, several times a day, just think of our older adults who, are retired, who for them every day is the same. So that confusion is so much more escalated. Alcohol abuse and medication misuse is way up right now during this COVID time, and in all ages. And they may be more fearful, lonely, or bored, and frequent phone calls. As a family caregiver, you may be getting more frequent phone calls. They may forget that you talked about something yesterday or just 2 hours ago. And then self-care changes, what we call ADLs, or activities of daily living. So when they're, and I kind of mentioned some of this already, less conscientious than previously, whether it be, mainly their own health and hygiene, bathing less frequently or not at all. Many times they just feel they don't need to, or it's harder to get in and out of the tub or the shower, or they have the fear of doing so. And obviously then they may have body odor, or their hair may look awful and dirty. Changing clothes less frequently, I already mentioned. Eating and or weight change, making poor food choices. I had a client one time years ago who basically was sustaining himself on hot dogs and donuts from the Quick Trip because he just was no longer able to make the decisions of what to eat and when, and do the mental processing of how to prepare it. So real significant. Incontinence, if there's a change in that, and obviously medication management. So I mention all of these changes because these are all indicators of when it might be time to have that conversation. So, and then last of all is the home management changes, or what we call the IADLs, which means instrumental activities of daily living. So that's anything that's not directly related to our personal care needs, but is still tasks and activities that we need to do daily, such as housekeeping, cooking, shopping, ordering medication, and complying with the appropriate dosages and orders, doing laundry, transportation, keeping track of appointments, and bill paying and checkbook balancing. That often is overlooked sometimes until it's way too late. That mom or dad may have stopped balancing the checkbook long ago and have no idea, where the money is or what the money's being spent on. So, whenever possible, try to at least have an idea of finances. And then caregiver concerns. A lot of my clients are people whose families live out of state, or they may work full time, so they just don't have the ability to be hands-on providing everything for mom or dad. Here again, they live a ways away. And for the caregivers who are the couples, maybe that wife is caring for her husband and he can no longer be left alone, so she needs a break, or what we call respite. Financial burdens and lack of objectivity. That caregiver, I find it more so with wives than husbands, but they think that nobody can do what they're doing and doing it as well. And maybe a paid caregiver might not do it the same, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. So sometimes it's hard to spot those changes and abilities. So then we're going to talk about having the conversation. That's, what is so important. How and when do we have that conversation? First and foremost, use the I statement instead of saying, you need to consider having a housekeeper. Mom, I really think a housekeeper could be beneficial for you. Address the what ifs. What if you would fall tomorrow and we're no longer able to drive, or, get up the stairs to your bedroom? Ask questions, and most of all, listen. And sometimes that's the hard part. Set aside our own personal agenda and feelings, communicate empathy, and observe everybody else's body language as we're having these conversations. So ask their advice. Here again, starting with an I statement. Mom, Dad, I'm starting to plan for my retirement. How did you both begin that process? Or I recently read an article about advanced directives. Do you both have one? This one I actually used personally with my own parents several years ago, probably 15, almost 20 years ago. I said, guys, I recently had two friends whose parents passed away. One of them had everything planned, right down to the type of flower and the type of bouquets. The other one had nothing planned. And I really saw the contrast of the peace versus the chaos, that these families went through having to plan funerals for their loved ones. I said, so, that spoke dearly to me, and I want to make sure if something happens to, you, that I know what your wishes are, and how I can act on your behalf. So when I had that conversation with my own parents, there were a lot of surprises. The funeral home that I thought my mom would want to go to be buried from, because all of her family did, she said, no, I don't want to go there. I want to go to the one closer, here. And the one that I had assumed, they both said, no, we don't want to go there. So here again, it was just having that brief conversation with them regarding, a couple of those real basic issues. The day my dad died, my mom was able to call me and say, Susie, I don't even know what funeral home to call. And I said, Mom, I have it written down. I'm pretty sure it's such and such, and, I'll be home in a half hour. I'll, let you know. So here again, using those personal experiences to broach that conversation with others, or even with our own kids, our adult children. You know, I recently had a friend pass away, and it really brought my own mortality to mind. You know, so if something happens to me, this is what I would like you to know. Or here again, if something happened to you and you were unable to make your own decisions or speak for yourself, who would you want to do that on your behalf? And this is where the whole advance directives, the power of attorney documents come in as well. And then if you got in a severe car accident tomorrow, then what? Who would be here to take care of Dad, Mom, if you weren't able to? And what would you want us to do for you? So using that if, then what. Don't interrupt, except to clarify. And sometimes when we're dealing with our own family, our own siblings, that's hard to do, you know, because we know the behaviors, we know their patterns, and, you know, we all have our agendas. So sometimes that can be the hardest part, is just listening and not interrupting. Ask them open-ended questions to stimulate conversation versus yes-no questions. And here again, like I said before, the objectivity, try to separate my own thoughts and opinions from what theirs might be. When I had that very first conversation with my parents, and one of my sisters was there, and we were very surprised by the answers they gave us, but it was very helpful. Don't try to offer immediate solutions. Allow time for responses. And ask for set a time to talk again. You know, we talked about a lot today. You know, maybe next time I'm here, can we, you know, talk about the, you know, such and such? That can give you time to think about it. And I know just by posing it like that, my parents were a lot more receptive to it. You know, that I would just kind of plant that seed. And I've done that with many of my clients too. So offer alternatives. If you're seeing concerns and you're bringing that up, offer them alternatives. I'm really concerned about your night driving and would be happy to bring you to your book study on Thursday evenings. Would that work for you? I would feel safer if you didn't have to drive at night, and we know that your eyes aren't good enough to be doing that. So once again, doing it as I statements, and you're offering them an alternative. Versus just saying, Mom, you shouldn't be going to your book group anymore. You can't be driving at night. Whole lot gentler. It appears that grocery shopping is getting more difficult for you. I'd be happy to pick you up and take you with me or pick up groceries for you. More so in this day and age now where we can all order online and just drive up to pick them up or even have delivery. Those are such wonderful options. And I'm in the process right now of teaching one of my clients how to order his groceries from Pick and Save and then either pick them up himself or have caregivers do it. So it's just kind of that learning curve and presenting them with options because very often they don't even know. I've noticed that your house cleaning has become more difficult and would like to find and pay somebody to assist with that. Very often what I've done, and I suggest to families, is instead of hiring simply a housekeeper, hire a non-medical home care agency because they can do the light housekeeping, the dusting, the vacuuming, grocery shopping, cleaning the bathrooms, changing the bedding and doing the laundry, which is so hard for many people. So if you bring somebody like that in, a non-medical home caregiver, they can do that light housekeeping, but then if and when Mom or Dad need more help, those helping caregivers are already in the house and know Mom and Dad. So just kind of a little trick that I've learned, and it has worked well in the past. And then offer to investigate or find more information to assist them. Some of these alternatives always start with your county's Aging and Disability Resource Center and just see what programs and services they can offer you or direct you toward. They can't make any specific recommendations, and some of the programs and services that they offer are income-based, so you may not qualify for some of the help that they can provide, but always start with the Aging and Disability Resource Center for those initial resources. And then consult your professional organizations. If one of your older adults or even younger folks has multiple sclerosis or Alzheimer's or ALS or Parkinson's, almost all of those diseases have national organizations and very often a wealth of information on their websites, as well as maybe caregiver support groups or I have a contract with the National Multiple Sclerosis Society that I provide. They have a wonderful telephonic case management program that can help people. But for some of those folks with MS who just need a lot more hands-on help, I provide the in-person care management. So a lot of these organizations have some wonderful resources, but they're very untapped. So, and then seek the help of a neutral professional, and obviously that's myself, an aging life care manager, sometimes called a geriatric care manager, sometimes referred to as a professional advocate, so all of the above. So with aging life care management, as I said at the start, I can assist with determining the needs and the best options for your loved ones. I can tailor that personalized assessment and plan, and can be the neutral, objective person to advocate for the client's needs and wishes. And very often, I'll tell the family members, especially if mom or dad need help in the home, or worse yet, if it is time to move to assisted living, let me be the person to tell them that. Let me be the bad guy, and they can be ticked at me so that you don't have to be the bad guy. So, yeah, being the bad guy is sometimes my professional role. Unfortunately, it's not fun when I had to do it with my own mom, but I knew it was the best thing for her. And here can be the navigator through the many programs and services. And even though my service is a billable service, I can still save time and money. A lot of what I do is helping families who work during the day and just can't manage everything for mom and dad. So then how do we prepare for care? How do we communicate our wishes? There's a lot of tools out there that can be used that document your wishes. So the durable, which is also referred to as financial, and the healthcare power of attorney documents are very important. And then some of the healthcare power of attorneys documents also include a greater level of the advanced directives, which is sometimes referred to as the living will. And then obviously having the last will and testament and the executor. Many people assume, here again, especially with couples, that if something happens to one of them, that the husband will automatically be the primary decision maker. And Wisconsin is not a next of kin state. So that is not necessarily the case, nor is it with adult children. Many people assume, I as a parent, that if something happened to one of my adult children, I would and could be that primary decision maker, but that is not true. So I'm always kind of bugging my children that they need to do those power of attorney documents. But of course, many of our younger adults think they're too young and, what's the word I'm using? Indestructible, that they don't need all that. So technically, anybody over the age of 18 should have those healthcare power of attorney documents that designate who you want to be a decision maker or who they want to be a decision maker for them if they are unable to do so. Okay, so having those completed forms and making sure your loved ones know where they are, having them on file with your doctor's office or local clinic, and even the hospital systems. So, really starting with those advanced directives, the healthcare and financial power of attorney documents. I know the Outagamie County Aging and Disability Resource Center has a form that I really like, and I've recommended and given to a lot of my clients. Obviously, if we were doing this in person, I would be sharing them. But it's called Identify and Organize Your Personal Affairs. And it's like, I think about 17 pages, but it lists like all of your different accounts and passwords and just things that a loved one would need to know if something happened to you. But also, it's a way of keeping all of your financial and medical records in one place, because it's also used as a tool that if somebody would ever have to apply for Medicaid or the state financial assistance, we have a lawnmower outside our window here, it's a place that would be readily accessible, so you know where all of the financial, insurance, all of those documents are. So starting with the ADRCs, I don't know that they all have that tool, but I really like the one that the Outagamie County ADRC offers. And then there's other resources, the ARP Foundation, and I did just check. Years ago I used the little logo down at the bottom here that says Prepare to Care, and it's actually a booklet that they have. And I checked just this morning, and you can download it online, or you can still request the written form that they send right to you. I used to joke many years ago that if I died tomorrow, my husband would have no idea what day to even put out the garbage. And that's something that's listed in there. What day is trash day? You know, so those little things that we would never think of that our loved ones would need to know to take care of us or to take care of our affairs. So there's many different resources out there. I just saw in a mail order catalog, you could buy a book for like $15, it said, and it was titled, I'm Dead, So Now What? And it was a place to keep track of all of those records. So once again, you know, approaching that with your family or doing it for your family, for your adult children or loved ones, that, you know, there's this book that we can really put everything together so that if something would happen to you, we wouldn't need to go searching through files and all of your online accounts and, you know, having to close them down or access them, you know, so it would really be what I like to call the ICE, the in case of emergency plan. I've even had some people that I've titled it that. I've done some of it for them and I've titled it that. So, you know, just having those things in order can prevent so much distress and stress when and if there is a crisis. And knowing the general finances, you know, do they have a life insurance policy? Do they have annuities, pension plans? Because all of that is really significant to know. Do they have a long-term care insurance policy? All of those things are important to know when and if there is a crisis. And here again, any of these tools and resources can be a good place to keep everything all in one place. I know some attorneys who do long-term care planning are now providing like a binder for people to keep all of that information in one place. So just very helpful. And start now, you know, put your wishes in writing, your POAs, living wills, estate planning. Talk about and discuss your wishes with your loved one. You know, something as simple as, if I were killed in a car accident tomorrow, do I want to be buried or cremated? You know, just, I mean, those are huge decisions for loved ones to have to make in times of stress. So just communicating those wishes. And even if you have to jot it down on a piece of paper and sign it, it's not always legally valid, but at least it's a guide for your family members. I already said the ADRC's form, and of course the in case of emergency plan. So there is a wonderful organization right here in the Fox Valley. It's part of the Fox Valley Advanced Care Planning Partnership, and it's called Let's Talk Fox Valley. So it's a coalition that has been around now, gosh, I think for about 20 years, with the whole intent of encouraging, teaching, and helping people to complete those advanced planning documents, mainly the healthcare power of attorney, the living will part. They don't actually do so much of the financial power of attorney documents, but just having all of that in order. So they do a certification for what's called Advanced Care Planning Facilitation. I was certified in that process a year ago, and it's just a wonderful way to help people, anybody, facilitate the process of having that advanced care planning directive, that health care power of attorney. But it goes a little bit further. Is there anything, that you would like at the time of death? I just recently heard somebody say, I don't want a TV on very specific wishes about music, or, what he would like to hear, if anything, at that time he's dying. So just some very, it leaves more room for personal wishes. So if anybody's interested, please call the Fox Valley Advanced Care Planning Partnership. And they're actually based out of the UW Health Family Clinic, or MOASIS, which is right downtown by the YMCA. So you can Google it, Fox Valley Advanced Care Planning Partnership.org, or the phone number is here. Like I said, if we were meeting in person, I would be giving you all of that information. So how can we downsize and start preparing for ourselves? Get rid of stuff. Last summer, my family and I were going through having to clean up my mom's house. And it was overwhelming. And I remember calling my daughter one night pretty much in tears, saying, my goal over this next year is going to be to get rid of junk in my home. And I had already downsized a couple of years ago, so I did a lot of that, but I just, in tears, literally told my daughter, I said, I don't ever want you to have to go through what we're doing now, because it was just so overwhelming to go through everything at my mom's. So, do as much as you can now. Don't hang on to stuff that has no value or may not have value to your kids or your family. And, I saved for years all my birthday cards, from every single year. And yeah, they're important to me, but why save them? As I learned when I was going through a stack of my mom's. They have no use for in the future. And how many of us, when we save that stuff, actually go back and look at it? So, just asking yourself, is this valuable to me right now, and will it be valuable to my kids or my heirs or my family? Don't assume that your kids will want your stuff, because when we started trying to encourage my mom to get rid of stuff, she collected angels and she collected clowns. So every time I'd go there, she'd want to give me some of her clowns, and the clowns she wanted to give me were downright creepy and gross. So just so that there wasn't an argument, I would take them, but I would throw them away as soon as I got home. So it made her happy to know that she was giving her some of her stuff to us. So don't burden them with the time to go through it and get rid of it. And that's exactly what I'm saying. Last year, when my family and I were cleaning up my mom's house, was truly one of the most stressful times in our life. So, don't wish that on your family or your loved ones. So that's where communicating your wishes is, in that perspective, is a big part of it. Do some of it together. We all have, and I have in my bedroom, my top dresser drawer, it's kind of that keepsake junk drawer. And when I was going through my mom's drawer, I was heartbroken, and I wished I would have done it with her, so I could have asked her about a lot of the stuff. There was a really neat poem called When I Am in Heaven that obviously it was important to my mom, or she wouldn't have saved it, it wouldn't have been in that drawer. We didn't know why she had it or where it came from, but because I found it, I insisted that that be read at her funeral. But I wished I would have had the time and the ability to talk to my mom and know more about it. So there were a lot of those things. That was my regret. I know she wouldn't have been happy. She would have been constantly yelling at me for throwing her stuff away, but yeah, there's that happy balance. And there are services available to help. Professional organizers, movers. Now some of the moving companies, especially those who specialize with seniors and older adults, will do the organizing and sorting and downsizing process. And like I said, assist your parents now, and it really could be a good way to learn more about them while they're able to share. And that's just one of my biggest regrets. So with that, I thank you for attending. We're ahead of time, and normally I would open it up for discussion and questions. And so unfortunately, during this COVID time, that's my biggest regret, because that's the best part of doing these, is having the interaction and the sharing among all of you. So please reach out to your loved ones, have that conversation about yourself and what you would like for yourself in the future, or trying to communicate your wishes to them, but asking your parents or your loved ones, even spouses. Sometimes a lot of that is assumed, but by all means, have the conversations. Try to start that conversation, in any little indirect way as possible. It dawned on me, if you died tomorrow, I don't even know what cemetery you want to be buried at. And I did tell that to my husband years ago. I had no idea. So, just some of those very simple questions. And sometimes family members may react and think, oh, that's so morbid. Why do you always want to talk about dying? Well, because it happens to all of us, or health crises happen to all of us. So the whole thing is being prepared. And I think throughout COVID, throughout this last year, we've all learned so much more about being prepared. So please take that time to have those conversations with your loved ones. So it makes everything just a whole lot less stressful in those times of crisis. And if you have further questions about doing those advanced directives, or any of that other communicating tools or devices, please don't hesitate to give me a call. I'm happy to mail them or send them via email or point you in the right direction. So my contact information was at the beginning, but it's Sue at coylecaremanagement.com. Obviously, Coyle Care Management is the name of my business. So you can Google me, call me, email me, and I will always point you in the right direction. So with that, thank you. I hope you found this helpful.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Stark with the Carolyn Stark Real Estate Team. I want to say thank you to Sue for joining us today and presenting a great topic. Also, thank you to all of you for joining us today. We'll see you soon.